in this fight with Subriel Mathias and Dalton Smith, it's going to really be interesting to see what Subriel Mathias we get on fight night. You know, do we get the same Subriel from Liam Bottom? You know, the one who was distracted, who wasn't really taking it serious. You know, he focused on who coming versus his performance. Because if we get that Subriel Mathias, it's going to be a long night for Puerto Rican fans, right? It's going to be a long night because we're going to see Subriel Mathias get outboxed again, and you know, he's going to have to go back in obscurity for a little while. It'll be a little bit more of a high risk, low reward, you know, unless a guy like Hitchens, you know, will see an opportunity there, you know, catch a guy on his decline, you know, and take advantage of that. You know, we've seen that a lot in boxing before. But, you know, Subriel Mathias is one of those guys that if he can't catch up to you, he's going to have a long night. You know, he banks on fighters to remain stationary so he can get his combinations off. You know, he banks on fighters getting caught up against the ropes, caught up in the corner. And if Dalton Smith can go in there and box and stick to a game plan, similar to a guy like Liam Bottom, not the best boxer, but has enough skills to get the job done, I could see Dalton Smith taking this, you know, especially, you know, you got a lot of promoters, a lot of guys coming over to Puerto Rico, and they're looking to colonize. I could see this, you know, as one of those things. I could see Dalton Smith winning this and going to Puerto Rico and selling out. Subriel Mathias has everything that it takes to beat a guy like Dalton Smith. You know, the speed, especially when he's throwing his combinations. You know, the ability to cut off the ring. You know, he has that power. He got that game-changing power that could, you know, change the trajectory of a fight at any moment. But it's not so much of a question as can he, is will he, right? We've seen him go in there and get outboxed by a good boxer in Liam Bottom. So what if Dalton Smith comes in there and sticks to that same game plan and capitalizes on the same thing that Liam Bottom was able to capitalize on him, and just kind of stay away from those mistakes that he was making in that fight as well? Dalton Smith showed a lot of boxing ability in that fight with Jose Cepeda. Obviously, Jose Cepeda is not a Subriel Mathias, but I think that Jose Cepeda is a little bit better of a boxer than Subriel Mathias. I like how Dalton Smith in that fight with Jose Cepeda, you know, he had the ability to keep a guy at bay, not with power, but his ability to box and feint a guy, you know, and it kept Cepeda at bay. And the eyes on Dalton Smith to be able to throw a body shot like that, you know, just shows how aware he is in that ring, you know. And I think Dalton Smith kind of fit that mold for Eddie Hearn, you know, as it pertains to, like I said before, another white guy coming over there colonizing, you know, and taking advantage of a guy not being the most skillful. I think it's most likely that Dalton Smith, the boxer, come in there and stick to a game plan of boxing. And I feel like Subriel Mathias comes into this fight, you know, not able to catch Dalton Smith. You know, Subriel Mathias isn't as light on his feet as you would think in these highlights. He's getting older. You know, he's not the most active. And Dalton Smith, you know, has a lot to, you know, gain, especially through a promotion like the Zone long term, being able to win this fight. So like I said before, I just see it's another play. Again, take Puerto Rican fans, go back to Puerto Rico and sell out, you know. But Dalton Smith got the skill and the ability to beat a guy like Subriel Mathias, and he has a game plan and a blueprint to follow. You know, Liam Bottom already won, and Liam Bottom wasn't the best boxer. So I just see Dalton Smith coming in there, pushing the pace, boxing, but I can't see him going in there hurting a guy like Subriel Mathias. But I could definitely see him going in there and outboxing, outclassing a guy like that, only because when Subriel fight, he fight in quicksand. You know, he fight in quicksand, very slow, and, you know, a lot of his, you know, methods in the ring aren't IQ based. You know, it's just a guy chasing the guy, looking for a big punch. And I just don't see Subriel Mathias landing that big punch. So like I said before, I got to go Dalton Smith decision. Shout out to Eddie Hearn for promoting. But if Subriel Mathias is able to win a fight like this, again, it makes it more interesting, him and a guy like Hitchens, because Hitchens is a guy that's coming to box. And if Subriel Mathias can get in on a boxer, hurt and stop a guy, it's going to make, you know, it's going to make it more compelling for a guy like Hitchens to fight a guy like that, especially considering, you know, it's going to be in New York.